Hello, hello, hello. This is another putty. I got two greens. This one here is the original type, the opaque. The other one from yesterday is a solid green, and I love both of them. They're amazing. And I made t-shirt art also. And I want to make this video also for my GoFundMe page. I'm going to post the link under in my GoFundMe description, and I want to make this video about my cause. So, about my dream, about the future vision I have for healing and also for the whole planet and Mars and Moon and way out into the galaxies. So yeah, this is an ongoing thing. So, but I'm not the originator of this healing path, of course. I want to carry on. I want to be one of the people who carry on the legacy of Dr. Arthur Janov. And Dr. Arthur Janov, maybe some of you heard about the primal scream. And the primal scream became more known through the Beatles, actually, in the 70s, through John Lennon, who has been at Dr. Arthur Janov's Primal Scream Institute in LA. And the Primal Institute that later on his wife Vivienne took over, and he developed himself with his new wife. They developed the Primal Training and Treatment Center in Venice, California, LA area. And so then later on they moved to Santa Monica, and they have a better institute there now. I haven't been to that one yet. I left the center in 1995. Then I came back in 1997. I was there until 2000, and then I left, and I haven't been back there. So I wanted to go back there, but then it was not possible because we moved somewhere else, and I can't leave my situation here right now. And we're very bound together here, our family, my husband and my dog and myself. We never leave our dog alone, never, not even for a second. And my dream is for the future that everyone will live the same way, that we never leave our dogs or children alone, ever. And if people have to go places, so that they at least have backup people to be there and to be tending to our babies' needs. And I mean animals and human babies. So when I say babies, I always mean the animals as well, because they are our children. And so I have a very wide-reaching vision for the future. I want to create a therapy center for all people. I want all therapy programs that I have, including the educational program, including the classes to train people in this particular therapy. It's not going to be primal therapy, because they never gave me the primal therapist certificate there. I would have had to be there for a much longer time, and they kicked me out in 2000. And they kicked me out in 1995 because I wasn't taking the drugs, and that's actually it's actually illegal, kind of, you know. It was illegal what they did, because an institution, no institution, not even a hospital, can force you to take pharmaceutical medication, or a matter of fact, they can't force you to do anything, you know. They can't even force you to eat pasta with spaghetti sauce, because that goes against our constitutional amendments and rules. So yeah, yeah, and I always viewed this already with suspicion, you know. This, the way they handle things, they didn't handle things exactly the way I approve of it. But while Dr. Artsejanov himself was still giving the classes between 1992 and 1995, when I was there for the first 3 years, those were his last 3 years there. And I'm so grateful that I just was able to experience this, the amazing dynamic that was there, and the amazing flow, and the amazing classes that Dr. Artsejanov was conducting at the Primal Training and Treatment Center. And I learned so much, you know. It was therapy for all of us at the same time as undergoing a very rigorous and very dedicated and very interesting training program on how to help other people go through these emotions. So just fantastic. And a lot of this that I was on board with. But I wasn't on board with everything. It wasn't like I was still skeptical, or not, I wouldn't say skeptical. I was not on board with every single thing. So with most of this, with 95%. And that's huge for me. So that's very huge. So the 5% that I didn't agree with was his interpretation of what he called guilt feelings. So he had an interpretation of, for example, when someone, because he attributed everything to the fear of losing someone's friendship, or the fear of losing someone, or someone not talking to us anymore, which is a selfish motivation, which is, of course, a selfish thing, you know. I feel guilty, but what it really means is I'm afraid that the person is not going to talk to me anymore because I did this or that. So, and it didn't feel 100% right. Then later I talked to my husband about this, and I told him about his interpretation. And my husband, who doesn't like the center at all, he said, that is, but my husband and I will probably never agree on this, because there are so many things that are absolutely fantastic, but my husband doesn't agree with it. And it doesn't matter, it's okay, he doesn't have to agree with this. So, but my husband's struggling with me very hard, because he saw the negative things, because that's when, after I met my husband, after Artsejanov had left. Actually, 2 years after Artsejanov had left, in terms of retirement, he stepped back and let his wife run the center. So that's when a lot of things went downhill from there, because he was not looking over people's shoulders anymore. He wasn't keeping an eye on it anymore. Every therapist, including Franz Janov, they all had their issues, and it is very important for me to talk about this. I cannot hold back with this. I'm not here. This is not to slander anyone. I love everyone very dearly. They probably hate me. They probably don't like me at all. And I was also full of crap back then. And I was like, it wasn't, I didn't have my stuff together. And I was still quite in the beginning. When I left there, I was still quite in the beginning of my own healing journey. And they forced medication on me, which I didn't accept. And I didn't accept his Arjanov's way of interpreting guilt or remorse. I don't even know if he would put these two terms into the same file. If he is guilt the same as remorse, that's another question. um I would say it is, but maybe some people would disagree with this. But for me personally, if I think about something that I have where I have conducted myself in the wrong way, just out of ignorance, of course, I never meant to conduct myself in a wrong way, or in any way that would negatively affect anyone else. It was all out of ignorance. Whatever I did wrong in my past, when I look back on it today and I shake my head, and sometimes I say over and over, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings, and I should have handled this, I should have talked better, I should have known better, and I know I see this more from above. But when we're too enmeshed in these situations, we don't see these things from above. And how can we know better if we haven't been through this whole process ourselves? So that's why it is so important that we go through this first, in order to experience what it's like, what it feels like, and in order to understand the other person, where they're coming from and how they were feeling in any given situation. So for me, a feeling of remorse or guilt, I don't know if we can put this in the same, if this is on the same denominator. I would personally say yes, it is. For me, guilt and remorse is not a feeling where I can't relate to what Arjanov said, that I feel this remorse because I'm worried that the other person might not like me anymore. No. Some of these people are no longer alive. So how would that even apply then? How can they like me or not like me when they're no longer alive? Maybe they still are there in soul form, and sometimes I do talk to them, and I say I'm sorry. It's an energetic type of healing process. So even Arjanov, who was an atheist, said it is important that you still talk to your grandfather who's no longer there, and you can still say it to the wall or into the room, and you can say you do that for yourself mainly, and you can even let some anger out on the wall, and you can say, this is how you made me feel, and you can cry it out, and then in the end you can say what you really always wanted to say to him, that for example, I felt unseen by you, and would have been so nice if you had listened more to me, and I wanted to tell you this or that. And so you go through all the stages of awareness, becoming aware about how you were feeling and what you really wanted from that person, and how you felt, and how the disappointment felt, and the sadness and the hurt, and all of this, and including the anger, and you go through all of these stages, you know. That's a healing process, energetic healing process for ourselves. But at the same time, it is also very important for the energy around us, and for the energy, it has a domino effect for the energy in the whole world. So see an amazing cloud formation. And so, because I think that these energies do live on, and they might be in a different, in a resting situation or something, you know. And I think that they are still receptive, and that they can see things literally from above, and understand in that resting state, in that Orion Nebula resting state, as I call it. So it is beneficial for all of us, and we can directly speak to them. Whether people believe in this or not, it is beneficial for the energy. It's an energetic healing process that is energy healing in ourselves as well as for the whole world, because the whole world is a matrix of different energies and swirls and twirls and existences in this or that form, you know. So in resting state or active state or inactive state or sentient state or plant state or mineral state, you know, in any kind of situation, even in this here. So but that goes very, very far into metaphysics, Rudolf Steiner, you know, and not anthroposophy, because I'm not an anthroposophist. I'm not religious. I do not adhere to religions. We need to free ourselves from religions. But that doesn't mean we have to close the door on metaphysics. Metaphysics is still there and alive and well and happening. But metaphysics and the infinite cosmos has nothing to do with religion, not even with the Buddhist religion. They had a lot of thoughts already in that direction, but the moment a religion arises, it closes doors. So we can't do this anymore, okay? And the energetic healing process, Arjanov called it primal therapy. So primal in terms of we go back to our original primal feelings all the way to birth and even before birth. So there's a whole world that the embryo and the fetus, you know, whatever fetal developmental stage, an unborn being experiences. You know, it's a whole world of experiences that are happening before birth. And there's a lot of trauma potential that can happen. And that's why I recommend to people to read the book Early Imprints by Dr. Arthur Janov. It's an older book, much older. I think he wrote this in the 70s, but it's still very true. And a lot of scientists have caught on to this now and are working on this and carrying this legacy of knowledge on. And that's what I want to do with my therapy. I want to carry this legacy of knowledge and therapy on. Knowledge is not something that should stagnate. The moment knowledge stagnates, it becomes a religion, or it becomes a thought school or a philosophy, and then it is no longer useful, because then it stays stagnated. Okay, Rudolf Steiner was very advanced. He's a very advanced soul, an angel soul, very advanced angel soul. He said that he wants people to understand him, not follow him, but understand him. And he got very frustrated sometimes with people being religiously following and in a following state, and just not actually not listening to what he said. He said, I want you to listen to what I say, and I want you to not stagnate with that information, and I want you to carry that information on and make it bloom and make it grow. And when there's new technology, I want you to use it in agriculture or in any field. He has dug into many different fields and aspects of living, okay, psychology, natural healing, agriculture, energy healing. He went into all of this because all of this ties in with one another. Very important. Education system, very important. So even a political system, he has really dealt with this very thoroughly in his head. He has very much gone into all of these fields and explored it, and in order to make it better, in order to make this, to transform it and make something amazing with it, to create a more amazing system and a more alive and amazing functioning world. So that was his mission. A lot of people didn't listen to him. They made a religion out of it. They are stagnated somewhere. They're left in the dust somewhere on the trail. So that's why I say pick yourselves back up, come back on the road, move forward, listen to everyone, explore everything. You can always make up your mind afterwards, not dismiss someone because that doesn't fit into your religion or into your particular dogmatic view. But compare these things, try them out for them. That's the most important thing that Jiddu Krishnamurti always emphasized, is try it out for yourself, see if it works, and see how far that person was truthful or right on track with whatever they have been saying. Yeah, yes, I'm upstairs making a video. Yes, he is. Papa Dog's upstairs too. He is on the couch. So whatever we learn from anyone, we carry it on, we move it on. It's alive, it is fertile information. We put it to the test, and we test it out from in any way we can, and we combine things, and it's like making a perfume, you put different fragrances together and you see if this works and if it smells good, if it feels good. The same with information, and you test the information and you create something new out of that information. For example, the gorilla Coco learned a lot of sign language, hand signs, for blind people, sign language with fingers, and they're able to do this to a certain degree, and she had a pretty good vocabulary, and she was so smart, she came up with new terminology with the sign language. She would put two words together to create a new term. Okay, that's how language evolves. That's how information evolves. That's how studying, that's how testing things evolves. So you test things, you put two things together, you come up with a solution, you have a new terminology, language. Because of that, language never stagnates. It's always in a flow. And I encourage people to be creative with this and to come up with new words. Some daring people do. And then I see a lot of people, they will get very angry with me if I come up with new terminology because it doesn't fit into their old idea of that what they have been told, or that what they learned in school. And they think you're never allowed to shake that up or to put new words into it, and they'll go, ha ha ha, you made that up. Yes, I made this word up, or this, or and that's a wonderful thing, because language is there for all of us. We are all equally important and precious, and each person can contribute something to the language. Some of the new terminology will actually grow a root and start growing, and be useful. So others fall away. So it's just whatever is useful, we will carry that on, and we will use it to seed out new words and create new words and new information and new solutions. That's really what science is all about. Finding new solutions to solve old problems. And that's the proliferation process. Like a worm who proliferates himself forward, propels himself forward, like stretches himself forward, and proliferates himself in terms of at some point splitting into two, like a cell does during the anaphase. And then we have two new cells. They start to become cell groups. They split into 2, 4, 8, 16 exponentially. The worm does the same thing. It's a super multicellular organism. So it can break off in different segments and then have cell proliferation and then grow two new ones out of it. So the same with knowledge, the same with language. Language never stagnates. It keeps growing. It keeps repairing itself. It keeps throwing things out that are no longer needed. Certain grammatical forms that are obsolete, that are no longer needed. Certain politenesses or titles or ways to address a person that are falling off along the path because it's no longer needed. The official you will fall off, also in the German language, and I'm sure in many other languages. I heard in Spanish they have 3 different ways of addressing someone. That makes things very complicated. That creates a hierarchy system. Who knows how much they have in the Indian languages. So that's just a hierarchical burden on people. Psychologically too, educationally, it's a burden. We need to prune these things out. We need to make everything more functional and more respectful and more honest. It's not respectful for me to use the official you in German, which is Sie. And it sounds hostile to me. That's why I've always had a problem with this. And I always didn't know whether I should say this or that to someone. And sometimes at some point in school I would avoid that as much as I can, to even use that or even have to use in any way to say you to a teacher. and it makes things very complicated, psychologically convoluted. The equivalent to that in the English language would be sir and ma'am. And I find they originally was meant to be like respectful, hierarchically respectful, some to express a certain form of reverence or respect to someone, but later on it just became sour and it turned into hostility. And now what we've left now with these things, with these addresses, is just coldness and hostility, and it doesn't serve anyone. And any kind of form of hierarchical structure, whether this is in our language, grammatically or psychologically in the way we conduct ourselves, any kind of hierarchical way of conducting things doesn't work at all. So we've seen this now too often. And the Indian caste system is not working. I think they have that in Islam as well. I think they're very similar. So it doesn't work. And you can't put women under men. It doesn't work. Our brains are equal, completely equal in terms of intellectually understanding and exploring and communicating these types of things and processing this type of information. We're completely equal. There may be some differences, but only in terms of she is more strong in this area and he is more strong in that area. On average, for example, men tend to be stronger in physics and in technological things, while women are stronger in philosophy and psychology. Okay? But we put our minds together on this. No one has the right to say the other one is just a clown or is just this or that, or should go into the kitchen, or should serve the other. No, absolutely not. Okay, so this is just another hierarchy. We need to dissolve all of this. And all of this is energetic work. All of this is energy healing work. Teal Swan, okay, is equal to Arjanov and Sigmund Freud and C.G. Jung. Okay, so she is another equal to those, ties right into what I just said, and very advanced soul, God level soul, okay, and more advanced than Arjanov and on soul developmental levels, and more advanced than Sigmund Freud also. And on the same level also, in terms of innovation for the world, in the field of energy healing and psychology. On the same level as, who else? When I have to think about something real quickly, then it goes block. So that's why I can't. It will probably come later back, but that's always like, yeah, I call those the blackouts. When I put myself under pressure in finding a specific name that I hadn't used in a couple of years, so then it kind of goes into the back file of my brain, but it will pop up later. But there are several of those people that are equally important in contributing vital things to the world. So there are fantastic people in the world throughout history. You know, Anais Nin is another one. Okay, and Anneliese Ude Pestel, whom I have also been friends with and had the opportunity to have a great friendship with on and off, because you know we had generational gap problems, and you know, with all that emotional baggage, that made it very difficult. Lots of misunderstandings that play into this then. But I love her very dearly, and it was a pleasure that so many conversations that we have had, and towards the end of her life, I didn't have a conversation. I had a monologue in letter form that I sent to her, and then once in a while she would send me a handwritten note back and saying it's hard for her to write anymore because of arthritis, but she appreciated my input, and it was very interesting to her to read. At least interesting, even though she probably didn't agree with it, and it was way over her tolerance level. Let's put it that way, you know. So it's not easy, you know, to when we're different generations. One person has already taken off like a runner, you know, is somewhere in the future, and the other person's way trailing behind and still clinging, also ego clinging to certain things and religions and certain social rules and stuff like this, then it becomes very difficult for them to let go and accept that what that other person has to offer. So, and that's a common problem, you know, that's what holds all of us back as a collective, you know, when people are clinging to the old ways and not even willing to even go there where that other person is going, you know, or not even in theory, not even in listening. So they would rather fall asleep. My dad, for example, falls asleep while I talk, when I talk to them through video conversation. So earlier I talked to them, my dad kept falling asleep because he either falls asleep or he goes into a hardened resistance. So it's easier to fall asleep than go into resistance, because the resistance might come across as rude, but I understand. I'm not going to hold it against him, because it's just, I'm in the future and he's still in the past, and he's clinging to certain things that gave him some comfort, or are giving him some comfort right now. And so he doesn't want to let go of this, not even in terms of listening really attentively to that other person, whether he agrees with it or not. They don't even want to really listen to it. And so this resistance is happening throughout the whole world. And we can solve this. And if we solve this, we can make huge leaps forward in terms of healing everything and making the whole world a better place, and really improving things on every level. The prison system needs a 180-degree turnaround. It needs a complete reform. The sewage waste system and any kind of waste disposal, waste management, sewage system needs a complete reform. It's not working. They're taking nutrients away from our planet, from our fields, from the crops. Okay, so this is not sustainable. That's not going to go anywhere. It just causes illness. It causes sickness. It causes terrible immune dysfunction. We have to bring the nutrients back to the earth. My husband and I are living as an example of this right now. We had trees here when we moved to this house. We have a lot of cedar trees out there. And after while we moved here, we saw that some of them were struggling. They were struggling. There were some brown branches that were dried up and that were hanging there on the side. And he cut some of this, and I took some tree rosin from another tree that I put into some of the beetle holes in the cedar trees. That seemed to be also good. But I think what worked the best of all was we put nutrients back into this forested area with our composting. And now the trees have completely recovered. We we had a friend who an environmentalist friend who we worked with for the local environmental stewardship, and he and his girlfriend, they came over once, and he said, yeah, he identified those trees as Port Orford cedar. I don't think they are, but Port Orford cedar trees they're having an immune dysfunction. This is a specific species um, that are affected with bark beetles, but the real problem, underlying problem, is immune struggle. That's not just affecting one particular species. People always want to blame it on one particular species. There are a whole lot of tree species and animals all around the globe. There are a whole lot of tree species that are struggling with immune dysfunction. And the reason why is because they have to breathe in tremendous pollution from the air. And they're not used to this. This is too rapid of a shift that's happening. They didn't have enough time to adjust to this tremendous air pollution that humans are putting into the atmosphere. And also global warming, affects their immune system. Atmospheric warming, even if it's just by a degree or two, can create a complete endocrinological shift in a living organism. And a tree is a living organism. So that alone, and it can, for example, it has domino effects. It can cause the bark beetles not to freeze. So then if the bark beetles don't freeze, then the next summer there will be an unexpected amount of bark beetles, and they will go into the bark, and there will not be enough predators of the bark beetles that will pick them up and eat them. And then we have an entire domino effect of shifts in the ecosystem, in different ecosystems, which then leads to unforeseen catastrophes. Okay, so that's why, every time I hear someone laugh about anything like this, they'll say, oh, it's just a bark beetle, or this or that, or they all make fun of it, because they don't know the entire domino chain that predates this and that follows that. Okay, so, instead of laughing, it is important that people start studying biology. Very, very important. I want to offer all of this in my healing center that I want to develop. I want to offer free schools to educate people on environment, on all of these things, on our own biology, on self-healing, on how to help someone go through grief, for example, all of these things, how to help a teenager. Teenagers have it so rough. I want teenagers to come in there, and I want to offer them help. I want to offer teenagers a safe haven where they can mix and mingle and dance with each other and explore life without the peer pressures of alcohol and dysfunctional people bringing in their own standards that teenagers are very, very easily picking up because they don't have a spine yet. They haven't formed a certain wisdom of a certain spinal cord wisdom that they can stand on, and where things that are dysfunctional will beat off from. Instead, they absorb all of these things. And then I was one myself. I know from personal experience how hard that is. So we absorb certain things, we absorb certain belief systems and this and that and social pressure and certain ways of thinking, certain ways of talking and handling things. And then we think, yeah, this is how they do it. And they impress this on us, and then we start to imitate this because it is even totally unconscious, because we want to fit in, we want to be liked, and so on. So I want to offer a safe haven for them, where they can all, instead of doing harmful things to themselves, where they can learn, where they can grow, where we can be happy together, where we can create artwork together. All of these things, where we learn how to handle animals and be good to them and give them what they need. To teach them that the animals are us, we are animals, that the animals have the same needs as all of us and as the teenage kids out there. The animals have the same needs. They want to belong, they want to be loved, they want to be liked, they want to be integrated into the family, into the group. You know, when I observe dogs, they're the same as teenagers. You know? They want to belong, they want to be part of it. They get excited, they want to go out, they want to explore. They want to be together with you, go out there and check things out. They don't want to be alone. They want, just like a person wants to go out into nature with a good friend, you know. So we're completely identical. The only difference is, you know, we have different preferences in what we want to do with our lives. You know, my dog doesn't want to study psychology because that's not, his brain isn't set up for that. Okay, but everything else is the same, you know, the same need for cuddling and love and all of this. So, but he wants to study the trees. He wants to see the animals, or the pheasants. He loves pheasants. You know, when he hears pheasants, he's so excited. He's in heaven. So when we first got him, when we adopted him, it was so strange. You know, it was